All right. Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings, everyone. Let me make sure I click go live on IG. Yes, indeed. We are in the house, y'all. My apologies. I was scheduled to come on at 6:35. I thought I was like, I'll be good. I give myself that little um 5 minute grace period. I'm like, yeah, I'll be good. I'll be straight. I wound up having to adjust this and do that. I'm like, oh, snap. And I missed you all last week. Last week I had some technical difficulties. And so I'm like, what's going on with my computer? So I still gotta get some things going because I think I'm still um, utilizing the incognito window because there's an issue with my clearing the cache. So I was trying to do that and just, you know, I'm just updating y'all on that, the little crazy technical stuff. If anybody got any suggestions, I've been YouTubing and all that, trying to figure out how to get that together because I'm not feeling that, right? So anyway, I hope that everybody's doing great. My name is Miss Seisha. For those of you who don't know, some of you know me as Anisa in the Muslim community. Just backstory real quick. 31 years ago, I embraced Islam. All right, took my Shahada and declared my faith as a practicing Muslim. And I also had adopted the name Anisa. First, I actually had chose the name Zaina. I'm giving y'all this. I don't know why this is on my heart, so I just wanted to just share this with you all in terms of the backstory of my name, right? So first, I picked the name Zaina, and I had it for a little minute, and then actually, this is the names I had, right? So I had Zaina, Anisa, Zakia. I was just being real. I was getting real colorful, and just so you all know, when you become Muslim, you do not have to change your name. Okay, that is something that a lot of us thought that we had to do, especially too in the Black community. A lot of us having our names, and we understand with the name, especially the last name in particular, we know that that history is linked to our enslavers, right? A lot of us have those, our last names that we have based off the fact of our ancestors being enslaved. So when a lot of us became Muslim, a lot of us felt like we wanted to just as much as possible just get away from either Europeanized names or just wanting to just change our lives altogether. And so, as we know, a name is what identifies you is very significant. And so I had chose the name Zaina at first. Like I said, I had Zaina Anisa Zakia. I was just being very creative. And then I decided, I said, you know what? I said, I want to focus more on how just my character is and what I want to strive to be more. So that's why I took an N plus two. I said, okay, I don't want all those names. So I just left Anisa, which means friendly, of good company, affectionate. And so the root, no, Nisa, the women. And so with that being said, so I always held on to that name, Anisa. I was even telling my family, yeah, Anisa, I want y'all to call me Anisa and whoop de whoop. And then just like years later, just me evolving, coming into who I am, coming into more of my own person. And I had decided, I said, okay, number one, I never changed my name legally to Anisa. And then when I start, when I'm taking care of business and especially too just having a business and everything, and when you look on my websites and all of that, you see Seisha. And so I said, you know what? I said, I'm just gonna, introduce myself as Seisha. I said, now of course there are people who know me and they've been used to calling me Anisa. I don't correct them. I don't say, no, call me Seisha. If you've been calling me Anisa, I want you to call me that, and that's fine. But at the same time, I've decided to hold on and treasure the name that my mother gave me, Seisha. I do like my name. And yeah, so that's that. I just wanted to just share that with you guys for the first 5 minutes of this read aloud. Hey, So I'm ready to dive in, right? This is the book here that I am so looking forward to reading to all of you. Be Good to Eddie Lee. Okay. And it was written by Virginia Fleming, illustrated by the late Floyd Cooper. Floyd Cooper, his artwork is just incredible. He left a great legacy. It was so sad when I had found out that he had passed away some years ago via Facebook, and we were Facebook friends. In fact, I love to talk about how when I was doing one of my reading camps, he had actually joined in one of our lives. And I was just like, wow, man, I just felt very, very blessed because I've always supported his work. We always make sure our organization, ABC Read, we make sure that we purchase books that he's illustrated. And so this book here, as you all can see, you see that smiling face there, that handsome boy on that cover. And he has Down syndrome. And we are about to find out why it's important to honor the title of this book, which is Be Good to Eddie Lee. Christy glided back and forth in the porch swing, letting her legs dangle. Now that summer was here, she didn't know what to do with it. She grabbed a leaf from a trumpet vine. Across the street, Eddie Lee was sitting on his front porch steps eating a popsicle. Now I'll be bothered with him following me around all summer, she thought. Her mama said she had to be good to Eddie Lee just because he was lonesome, just because nobody else paid him any mind, just because he was different. Her mama said God made him that way, but Christy thought maybe just once her mama was wrong because God didn't make mistakes. And Eddie Lee was a mistake if there ever was one. In the next yard up, she could see Jim Bud. He was tossing marbles, trying to get them in a hole. She left the swing and walked slowly up the street, pretending not to notice him. Hello, Christy. She climbed up on his fence and scuffed her sneakers into the bottom board. Hello, Jim Bud, she said. Jim Bud tossed his last marble into the hole and climbed up beside her. Phew, it's hot, he said. He took off his sneakers. Warm enough to go wading. Want to go with me? I know where there's frog eggs. Christy nodded, and they hid their shoes under the pyracantha bush and started down the street. As they passed Eddie Lee's house, he called eagerly. Hello, Christy. Hello, Jim Bud. Jim Bud tugged at her arm. Come on, don't stop to talk to that dummy. Eddie Lee waddled down the steps and out into the street, chocolate running down his chin onto his shirt. He wore a big grin. Jim Bud ignored him. So Christy said, Eddie Lee, you better stay home. He didn't say anything, just looked hurt. Christy wished she had brought him an all-day sucker or something. Jim Bud gave her another tug. Come on, Christy. Eddie Lee, I said go home. Gohome. Ah, creeps. Christy, he can't spell. Jim Bud whirled around and stamped his foot. Get it, Eddie Lee. Get on. Eddie Lee grinned. I'm not a dog, Jim Bud. Then stop following us like one. Eddie Lee turned around and walked toward his house, head down. You don't have to hurt his feelings, Jim Bud. Mama says I have to be good to Eddie Lee. They had to go through the woods to reach the lake. Christy liked the smell of the wet leaves and the tickle of the soft ferns on her bare legs. The ground felt hard and cold to her feet. What's that? Christy asked. There was an ear tingling rattle as a belted kingfisher left its perch and flew like a silver streak out over the lake. It hovered above the lake for seconds. Then, after diving into the water, surfaced with a crayfish in its beak. Jim Bud dipped his toes into the water, testing it. There goes a fish, he yelled. I don't see any frog eggs, Christy said. They have probably already hatched. He most likely made it up about the frog eggs just so she would come with him. Christy let her feet sink into the bottom sand, and it curled about her toes like the folds of her downy quilt. Suddenly, a strange shuffling sound came from the bushes near the trail. What was that? Jim Bud looked scared. I don't know. They moved closer to one another and listened. Thump, thump. Christy's heart began to pound. They looked around for a place to run. The tall reeds around the edge of the lake made a quick escape impossible. Sounds like a monster, Jim Bud whispered. The bushes parted and the monster came clomping down the trail. It was Eddie Lee. What are you doing here? Jim Bud screamed. He looked at Christy and told a whopper. I knew it was him all the time. But there was a squeaky little quiver in his voice, and Christy knew that he had been just as frightened as she was. Eddie Lee just sat down on the bank and looked at them. Look, Jim Bud, there's a salamander, a teeny weeny baby. Christy pointed to the tiny animal squirming at the edge of the lake. Jim Bud squatted down beside her. Suddenly, there was a great splash. I got him, Jim Bud, Eddie Lee crooned. He scooped up the tiny salamander in his hands. Now look what you did, Eddie Lee, Jim Bud shouted, looking down at his soaked jeans. Just leave us alone. Eddie Lee turned to Christy. Here, Christy, you can have it. She held out her hands and felt the gentleness as he carefully let the salamander slip from his hands into hers. I still don't see any frog eggs, Christy complained as they waded along the edge of the lake again. Beautiful. Behind him, Eddie Lee stood looking out over the lake with his arms outstretched, his almond eyes charmed by water lilies that spread across the water's surface like a patchwork quilt. Beautiful. Christy looked up and for the first time saw the lilies. Oh, they are beautiful. Jim Bud, do you suppose we can pick some for Mama? Even one? She could put it in a glass bowl in the center of the table. They're way out in the lake, Jim Bud said. I'll get you a lily, Christy, Eddie Lee said. He splashed through the water until it reached his knees, but the lilies were far beyond his reach. Disappointed, he waded back, his shoes squeaky wet. I told you he was a dummy, Jim Bud said. Eddie Lee turned away from them and ran into the woods. Now see what you've done? You've hurt his feelings. Jim Bud shrugged and started off toward the cub side of the lake. Christy followed. They had hardly reached it when thump thump. This time, they were not frightened. They knew it was Eddie Lee. Thump thump, squish squish. His face was red. He had been running. Come on, Christy. Eddie Lee took her hand and pulled. Where? Come on, I'll show you. She left Jim Bud sitting on the bank and followed Eddie Lee, who was now waddling into the woods. Come on, he called. I'll show you. He led her along a trail that followed the edge of the lake, past beaver gnawed birches, over roots, and across a gravelly stream. Suddenly, he rushed ahead. Here it is. He smiled proudly. There was a wide opening in the trail, and right there in the woods was a miniature lake. Tall grass surrounded the edge. A swamp sparrow trilled from an overhanging branch. The pond lay clear and shadowy in the cool of the June afternoon. Floating on the surface of the pond were myriad pink and white lilies. In all the times Christy had come to the woods, she had never seen this pond. She knelt down and leaned over to look into the water. She could see her reflection in the pool. She was wearing a crown of lilies. Eddie Lee's reflection smiled at her. But he still wanted something. Come on, Christy, I'll show you. He reached for her hand and pulled her with him as he trailed around the little pond to the far end. Look, he shouted, pointing to the still sun-warmed water. There, clusters of frog eggs were settled on the bottom mud, large cloud-like jelly masses, polka-dotted with tiny tadpoles, not ready to hatch. Frog eggs! Oh, Eddie Lee, you are a genius! You found water lilies and frog legs. She bent down and touched the soft, silky mass. The sun shone on patches of it. Some of the tadpoles were moving. We had to find something to put them in, Christy said. Eddie Lee's almond eyes slid together and his forehead folded to a frown. No, no, he said. Yes, so we can take them home in a jar or something. Eddie Lee pointed his finger at her. His words came out slowly as if he had to think about them first. If we take them home, they will die. The mama frog, Christy, the mama frog. He couldn't get the rest out. We'll be sad, Christy finished. I never thought of that. Well, Eddie Lee, let's go pick a lily for mama anyway. Just as they got down on their knees to reach for the lilies, there was a plop in the water. The water rippled into circles, one inside another. Eddie Lee pointed to their reflections and laughed. You look funny, Christy. Christy's face in the water mirror was distorted by the ripples. She put her hands to her cheeks to hide the crooked image. That's okay, Christy, he said. I like you anyway. He grinned his wide grin and put his right hand over his heart. It's what's here that counts. The two started back through the woods. Jim Bud, Christy called. The path was filled with afternoon sun. Wait till you see the end. Yes. Yep. One of my favorite books to read. I love this book. And actually, this is a book that I highly recommend that a lot of teachers should read in their classrooms. And the reason why is because this book is a great educational tool to help our young people be able to better understand those who have special needs, whether it's Down syndrome, autism, or any type of special abilities or special needs. I like to call them special abilities as well, because it creates a level of empathy, and it creates this connection. Because a lot of times, especially in schools, even when you have those who have special needs and they have to get integrated into the general population, it still doesn't feel like a true integration because they still wind up in a lot of cases, not all schools, because you have some schools who are really good at this and understanding that everybody in the school is unique and everybody should feel included. But unfortunately, if you don't have that education around being able to understand someone who has special needs, we have a tendency to kind of think that they're the other. That's why a lot of times you see them there in these classrooms that's far away, off in a cut, in the corner, so nobody can be able to see them, right? Because they're different. You have folks who act like how Jim Bud's character was, really rude, ignorant, and sometimes even try to misuse our our folks who do have special needs. So I think a book like this and books like this, it should be a mandatory read for all grade levels. So this is one of the reasons why I love reading this book. I use it as an educational tool, so that we can make sure that we are supportive of our population of people who have those special abilities, because they want to feel like they matter. They don't want to be treated as if they are they don't know things. All right, just like we saw in Eddie Lee's character, there may be some things that he may not be quick to getting, but by him having that softness, he has that level of empathy. He knew not to take the frog eggs away, keep them safe with mama. He even he even had the that spirit of, I want to go and explore, that unafraid type of character. And those are things that you want to have around. Those types of characters and those types of people who have that mentality, you want them around your children. All right. So, with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed that. 23 minutes in, I did pretty good. All right. I try to keep my stories definitely up under 30 minutes. And I hope that you all enjoyed it. Please make sure that you're reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Again, I'm the founder and executive director of ABC Read. ABC Read is our nonprofit organization, and our mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities. And I hope that you all check us out. Go to abcread.org, see the work that we've been doing. And if you would be so kind, we would love for you to donate to ABC Read, the number one, on our Cash App, or you can donate through our website. And please remember to like, subscribe, share for those of you who are listening to me on YouTube. I actually have this story on YouTube. I read it some years ago. All right. And so it's been a minute since I read this story. So I really felt good being able to read it again. And also, last thing, you are looking for that merch. You're looking for that apparel that promotes literacy, reading, conversations around reading, why we need to read, how we should be reading all the time. Go to my website, readingisfreedom.store. Grab your hoodies. It is definitely hoodie and sweatshirt season. So you need to make sure that you cop your merch, cop your hoodie, cop your sweatshirt. Grab it today. All right. Please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. And remember, reading is freedom. Peace.